an alien girl learned what love was from a human. Hello everyone, before we begin today's story, I have a small favor to ask. Please hit subscribe and turn on the notification bell so you never miss our channel's new videos. It's quick, free, and the best way to support us in bringing you more dramatic stories. Your support means the world to us. Where are you watching from? Drop your city or country in the comments below. Thank you very much. Now, let's return to our main character. In a quiet corner of the galaxy, where stars twinkled faintly against the velvet dark, there lived a girl unlike any other. Her name was Lyra, and she hailed from the distant planet of Zycaria. Her skin shimmered with a pale violet hue, a unique trait of her people, and her eyes glowed with a soft, silver light. But despite her beauty, there was a deep sadness that lingered in her heart. She had never known love, never felt the warmth of someone's affection. Raised in a society that valued strength and independence above all else, Lyra had been taught that emotions were a weakness, that the heart was something to be controlled and ignored. Her people had little need for such things, their focus always on survival, their harsh environment demanding everything from them. Love, it seemed, was a foreign concept. Then, one fateful day, she crossed paths with James Carter, a human from Earth who had traveled far from home on a mission of peace. James was unlike anyone Lyra had ever encountered. His dark brown hair fell in messy waves around his face, and his hazel eyes held a warmth that seemed to defy the coldness of space. He was a simple man, with no grand ambitions or desires for power, yet there was something in his demeanor that immediately set him apart from the cold, calculating being she was used to. It wasn't his appearance that drew her in, though. It was the kindness in his voice, the way he smiled at her as if she were someone worth knowing, someone worth caring for. At first, Lyra resisted. She didn't know how to respond to such gentleness, to such tenderness. She had always been taught that her worth lay in her strength, not in her emotions. But James never asked her to be anything other than herself. Slowly, she began to let her guard down, to open her heart in ways she never thought possible. James, in turn, found himself drawn to her vulnerability, to the way she had been shaped by a life of hardship and struggle. He saw past the cold exterior, past the sharp edges that guarded her heart, and into the warmth that lay beneath. It was in the quiet moments, when they were alone together, that Lyra began to understand what love truly meant. It wasn't something to be feared or suppressed. Love was a force that could heal, that could bring two people together in a way nothing else could. And as the days passed, as they spent more time together, Lyra began to see herself in a new light. For the first time in her life, she felt like she mattered, not for her strength or her status, but simply for who she was. She was beginning to believe in the possibility of love, in the idea that she could be loved, not just for her abilities or her status, but for the person she was inside. As the days passed, James and Lyra's bond grew stronger. Every moment spent together seemed to bring them closer, each shared glance, each quiet conversation, deepening the connection between them. For Lyra, it was a revelation. She had never known such tenderness, such kindness. She was used to a life where emotions were a luxury, something to be suppressed, but with James, she felt safe. He didn't see her as just another alien, another warrior, or a symbol of her people. He saw her as Lyra, the person, someone worthy of love and care. It wasn't easy for her to open up, after all, she had been trained to remain distant, to guard her heart. Yet, with James, the walls she had carefully built over the years started to crumble. One evening, as they sat under the shimmering stars of the distant planet, Lyra found herself looking at him with a new understanding. It was in the stillness of that night, with only the soft hum of the ship and the distant twinkle of stars in the sky, that she finally realized what she had been missing all her life. "James," she whispered, her voice barely audible, "I never knew. I never understood what love was before you." James looked at her, his eyes soft with warmth. He didn't say anything at first. Instead, he simply reached out, gently taking her hand in his. His touch was steady, reassuring, and it made her feel something she had never experienced before, a sense of belonging. "You don't have to understand everything all at once," James replied, his voice calm but filled with a depth of emotion. "Love isn't something you learn from books or from others, it's something you feel, something you discover together." Lyra felt a warmth spread through her chest, a feeling she had never quite grasped before. It was as if a part of her, a part that had been buried deep within, was awakening. She had always thought of herself as strong, independent, and above such fragile things as love, but now she saw how much strength there was in allowing herself to feel, to trust, and to open her heart to another. It wasn't long before the first kiss came, tender and unsure at first, as if they were both testing the waters. But when their lips met, it was as if the universe had aligned, as if everything had fallen into place. The kiss wasn't just an expression of affection, it was a promise, a pledge to stand by each other no matter what challenges they would face in the future. For Lyra, it was a moment of transformation. She had spent her life fighting, surviving, never allowing herself the vulnerability that love required. But now, in the arms of a human, she discovered that love didn't make her weak. It made her stronger, more complete. As the days turned into weeks, their relationship deepened. They learned from each other, Lyra teaching James about the ways of her people, their customs, their history, and James showing Lyra the simple joys of life, the beauty of small moments, and the power of compassion. Together, they began to build something beautiful, something neither of them had ever imagined. Their love was not without its challenges. The differences between their cultures and their worlds were vast, and there were times when misunderstandings arose. But with each challenge, they grew stronger, their bond unshakable. Lyra learned that love was not just an emotion to be feared or avoided. It was the very thing that made life worth living, the force that united people across galaxies, transcending boundaries and differences. And James, well, he had never imagined that a simple act of kindness could lead to something as extraordinary as this, a love that defied the stars, that could never be explained, only felt. The days turned into weeks, and Lyra and James found themselves caught in the quiet rhythm of their shared life. The vast, uncharted reaches of space no longer seemed so lonely to Lyra, for she had found something more precious than any adventure, love. James had become her anchor, the person who made her feel truly alive in a way she had never thought possible. They spent their time together exploring new planets, learning from each other, and simply enjoying the moments in between. For Lyra, every new experience was like a discovery, each one more profound than the last. She had learned what it meant to laugh without fear, to be vulnerable without shame, and most importantly, to love without holding back. One day, while standing at the edge of a cliff on a newly discovered moon, the wind brushing against their faces, Lyra turned to James, her violet eyes reflecting the setting sun. "James," she said softly, her voice carrying the weight of something unspoken, "I never thought I could feel this way. I never thought I could truly love someone like this." James looked at her, his gaze steady and warm. "And I never thought I'd find someone who makes me believe in the impossible," he replied, his voice filled with the same sincerity she had come to recognize as part of his character. Their eyes locked for a moment, and in that silence, they understood each other perfectly. Love was not a simple feeling, not a fleeting emotion, but something deeper. It was something that grew over time, built from trust, respect, and a shared understanding. In that moment, with the entire galaxy stretched out before them, it didn't matter that they came from different worlds. What mattered was the connection they had forged, the bond that transcended their differences. As they continued their journey together, Lyra's heart swelled with a sense of belonging. No longer did she feel like an outsider in her own life. James had shown her that love wasn't about perfection or meeting expectations, it was about being seen, being understood, and being cared for. It was about finding someone who made you feel like you were enough, just as you were. Over time, their love became more than just an emotional connection. It became a partnership, a mutual respect that ran deeper than either of them had ever imagined. They faced challenges together, moments of doubt, fear, and uncertainty, but each time, they found their way back to one another. Lyra had once thought that her heart was too guarded, too broken, to ever love again. But with James, she discovered a new way of loving, one that was patient, kind, and full of promise. For James, the journey had been just as transformative. He had come to space seeking adventure, but in the quiet moments with Lyra, he found something far more meaningful. He found a connection that made every battle, every mission, every lonely night worth it. As their love grew, so did their understanding of each other's worlds. Lyra introduced James to her people's history, their struggles, and their triumphs, while James shared the culture and ideals of Earth. They learned to appreciate the vastness of each other's experiences, and in that, they found common ground. Their relationship, once marked by the uncertainty of new beginnings, was now a source of strength. They had found in each other something rare, a love that had no boundaries, no limits, only the potential to grow as vast as the universe itself. Together, they were unstoppable, not because of their strength alone, but because they had each other. And in each other, they had found something far greater than anything they could have imagined alone. As time passed, James and Lyra's relationship continued to deepen, becoming an unbreakable bond that neither of them had ever expected. They had traveled across many worlds, explored new galaxies, and encountered alien species that Lyra had only heard of in stories. But through it all, one thing remained constant: their love for each other. It wasn't always easy. There were still moments of doubt, moments when Lyra would pull away, unsure if she deserved the happiness she had found. She had grown up in a world where emotions were seen as weaknesses, and sometimes, it felt unnatural for her to embrace the vulnerability that came with love. But James never gave up on her. He was always there, with a kind word or a gentle touch, reminding her that it was okay to be open, to feel, to love. One evening, as they sat together on the deck of their ship, the stars scattered across the endless black sky, Lyra turned to James with a thoughtful expression. "James, I've been thinking," she began, her voice soft but firm, "I never knew how much I needed someone until I met you. You've shown me a side of myself I never knew existed." James looked at her, his heart swelling with affection. He had known from the moment they had met that there was something special about Lyra, something that went beyond her alien features and the culture she had been born into. "And you show me that love isn't just about feeling good or happy all the time," he replied, his voice steady and warm. "It's about being there for each other, even when things aren't easy. Love is about the connection we share, no matter what happens." Lyra smiled, a genuine smile that reached her eyes. She had spent so long running from the emotions she had been taught to suppress, but with James, she had learned that it was okay to let go. It was okay to love and be loved in return. The journey hadn't been without its challenges. There were still moments when Lyra struggled with the weight of her past, when she felt the pressure of her people's expectations. But with James by her side, she began to realize that she didn't have to carry that burden alone. One day, as they landed on a planet covered in rolling hills and lush forests, James took Lyra's hand and led her to a quiet spot by a bubbling creek. They sat together, their legs dangling over the edge, watching the water flow gently past them. "This is beautiful," Lyra said, her voice full of awe. "I never imagined I could find peace like this." James squeezed her hand. "Sometimes, peace comes from within. It's not always about the place you're in, but the people you're with." Lyra turned to him, her heart swelling. In that moment, she knew that no matter where their journey took them, as long as they had each other, they would always find a way through. As they watched the sun dip below the horizon, casting a warm glow across the landscape, Lyra realized that love wasn't just something she had learned from James. It was something they had built together, a bond forged through trust, understanding, and mutual respect. And in that moment, surrounded by the quiet beauty of the world they were discovering together, she knew that this love was just the beginning of a new chapter in her life, one that was full of hope, possibility, and the promise of a future they would share, side by side. As the months passed, the bond between James and Lyra only grew stronger. They had settled into a rhythm, each day filled with new discoveries and shared moments. Lyra, once so guarded and distant, had fully embraced the love that had bloomed between them. It was a love that felt as though it had always been meant to happen, as if the universe itself had conspired to bring them together. James, too, had found a sense of belonging in Lyra's presence, something he had never imagined he would find in the vastness of space. Together, they explored new worlds, traveled across galaxies, and encountered beings from distant stars, but it was their connection, their deep understanding of one another, that kept them grounded. One evening, as they sat on the observation deck of their ship, watching the endless expanse of stars stretching out before them, Lyra turned to James, her eyes reflecting the light of distant suns. "Do you ever wonder," she asked softly, "how we ended up here? How we found each other in this vast galaxy?" James smiled, his hand gently brushing hers. "Every day. It feels like fate, doesn't it? Like we were always meant to find each other, no matter how far apart we started." Lyra nodded, her heart swelling with emotion. "I never thought I could find something so real. I always thought I had to be strong, to keep my distance. But with you, James, I feel like I'm finally letting go, and I'm not afraid. James squeezed her hand, his voice low and steady. You don't have to be afraid anymore, Lyra. You don't have to carry the weight of the world on your shoulders alone. I'm here. Always. It was in that moment, with the vastness of the universe around them, that Lyra realized how far she had come. She had once believed that love was a weakness, something that would make her vulnerable and break her. But now, with James by her side, she understood that love was her strength. It was the thing that gave her the courage to face whatever lay ahead. As the days passed, their connection deepened even further. They found joy in the simple things, the way James would make her laugh with his dry humor, or the quiet moments when they would sit together, holding hands, watching the stars. Lyra began to see the beauty in these small moments, in the tenderness that existed between them. She had never known that love could be so gentle, so pure. One afternoon, as they explored a lush forest on a planet covered in vibrant green flora, Lyra and James sat on a large rock, watching the wildlife that surrounded them. The air was thick with the scent of blooming flowers, and the sounds of distant birds filled the air. Lyra leaned her head on James' shoulder, feeling at peace for the first time in her life. You've given me something I never knew I needed, she said quietly. James kissed the top of her head, his arm wrapping around her in a protective embrace. And you've given me something I never knew I was looking for. Their journey together was far from over. They both knew that. The universe was full of mysteries and challenges, and there would be obstacles ahead. But with each other, they knew they could face anything. Love had shown them a new world, one where anything was possible as long as they stood together. And for Lyra, that was the greatest gift of all. The journey continued, and James and Lyra found themselves in a place where time seemed to slow, as if the universe had granted them a brief moment of peace. They had traveled far from Earth, and the stars around them had become their constant companions. The vastness of space no longer felt so intimidating, instead, it felt like a canvas of endless possibilities. As the ship cruised through an uncharted nebula, the soft hum of the engines filled the quiet moments between them. Lyra sat at the observation window, her eyes tracing the colorful swirls of gas and dust that painted the nebula outside. The lights danced in her violet eyes, reflecting the cosmic beauty around her. James joined her, standing beside her with a gentle smile. Do you ever think about the future? He asked quietly, his gaze fixed on the stars. Lyra turned her head slightly, her expression thoughtful. I do, she replied. But not in the way I used to. Before, I was always focused on survival, on the next mission, the next challenge. But now, with you, it's different. I can imagine a future, one where we don't have to run, one where we can just be. James felt his heart swell with emotion. He had known from the moment they met that Lyra was unlike anyone else, but hearing her speak so openly about the future brought a sense of peace he hadn't realized he was searching for. And what do you see in that future? He asked softly. Lyra's eyes softened, and she leaned against him, her head resting gently on his shoulder. I see us exploring together, learning together. I see us finding new worlds, meeting new people, but always coming back to this, back to us. James wrapped his arm around her, holding her close. That sounds like the perfect future to me. They stayed there, side by side, watching the nebula shift and change before them. It was a reminder that even in the midst of all the unknowns in the universe, there was something constant between them, something real and unbreakable. The days continued to unfold, and the bond they shared grew stronger. They faced new challenges, encountered new species, and discovered new planets, but nothing compared to the sense of fulfillment they found in each other. Lyra, once a warrior with a hardened heart, had learned to embrace the softness of love. She had found not only a partner in James but a reflection of her own strength. Love, she realized, wasn't a weakness, it was a force that gave her the courage to face whatever lay ahead. One evening, as they sat on the balcony of their ship, watching the sun dip below the horizon of a distant world, Lyra turned to James with a smile. I never thought I could feel this way, she said softly. But now, I can't imagine my life without you in it. James kissed her forehead gently. And you never will, he replied, his voice filled with warmth and certainty. Together, they had created something beautiful, something that transcended the stars. It wasn't just about the adventures they shared or the worlds they explored, it was about the connection they had built, a bond that would remain unbroken, no matter what the future held. They had found in each other the greatest treasure of all, love, in its purest and most profound form. The weeks turned into months, and James and Lyra's love only deepened with each passing day. They had now ventured into the far reaches of the galaxy, exploring uncharted territories, discovering new cultures, and sharing experiences that neither of them had ever thought possible. But no matter where they went, the universe always seemed to shrink when they were together. Lyra, who had once been the embodiment of stoic determination, now found herself embracing life in ways she never thought she would. The adventure had not been about the places they visited or the stars they charted. It had always been about their connection, about the way they had grown with each other. James had shown her that love was not just about the highs, it was about finding the strength to weather the lows, together. One night, while they stood in the observation deck of their ship, Lyra looked at the stars. They had always been so distant, so cold. But now, they felt like they were part of something bigger, something that connected them. James joined her, wrapping his arms around her waist. "What are you thinking?" he asked softly. "I was thinking about how far we've come," she replied, her voice barely above a whisper. "I used to look at the stars and feel small, insignificant. But now, with you, I feel like I belong." James smiled and kissed her forehead. "You always did. You just needed to see it." Lyra leaned into him, her heart swelling with the warmth of his words. In that moment, she realized that it wasn't just their love that had made her feel complete. It was the way James had helped her discover her own strength. He had given her the space to be vulnerable, to let go of the walls she had built, and in return, he had found someone who loved him in a way that was pure and unwavering. They were no longer just two beings from different worlds. They were partners, equals, bound by a love that had transcended the boundaries of space. As the days passed, they continued to face the challenges that life threw at them. There were still moments of doubt, moments when Lyra questioned if she truly deserved this life, this love. But James was always there, steady and patient, ready to remind her that love was not about perfection. It was about the journey they were on together. One day, as they docked on a peaceful planet with emerald green skies, Lyra sat by the window, gazing out at the lush landscape. James came up behind her, his hand resting gently on her shoulder. "What do you think, Lyra? What's next for us?" he asked, his voice full of curiosity. She smiled, turning to face him. "I think we keep going," she said. "I think we keep exploring, keep learning, and keep loving. Together." And so, they did. With each passing day, their bond grew stronger, their love more profound. It wasn't about the grand adventures or the distant planets anymore. It was about the quiet moments, the shared glances, and the understanding that no matter where they went, they would always have each other. The universe, vast and mysterious, had brought them together. But it was their love that would guide them through whatever came next. James and Lyra had spent so many months traveling across the stars, discovering new worlds, and experiencing the vast beauty of the universe. Yet, through all the incredible adventures they had shared, it was the quiet moments, the ones between just the two of them, that had become the most meaningful. Lyra had never imagined that life could be this full, this rich with emotion and connection. It wasn't the battles, the unknown planets, or the wonders of space that had changed her, it was the love she had found with James. He had shown her that even in the darkest times, love could light the way. They had faced difficult moments together, and there were still challenges to come. But they had learned that, as long as they had each other, they could face anything. One evening, as they sat beneath the stars on a peaceful planet, Lyra took a deep breath and looked over at James. He was gazing at the sky, a soft smile on his lips, as if he were content just to be in the moment with her. She had never known a peace like this before. "James," she said, her voice steady but filled with emotion, "I've been thinking about everything we've been through. About how much we've learned and how much we've grown." James turned to her, his eyes soft with understanding. "I've been thinking about it too," he said quietly. "About how far we've come, how much we've changed. But most of all, about how much we've learned from each other." Lyra smiled, the warmth of his words making her heart swell. "You've shown me so much, James. You've taught me what love truly means. You've made me realize that it's not about being perfect, it's about being there for each other, no matter what." James took her hand in his touch warm and comforting. "And you've taught me the same, Lyra. You've shown me that love isn't just something you feel, it's something you do, something you choose every single day. I've never known anyone like you." Lyra felt her heart flutter, and in that moment, she knew that, no matter where their journey took them, she had found something more precious than anything in the universe. She had found a partner, a friend, and a love that was truly unbreakable. As the night stretched on, they sat there together, silent but comfortable, their hearts full of the love they had built. They had learned that love wasn't something that came easily or without effort, but it was something worth fighting for. And no matter what lay ahead in the vast, unknown galaxy, they knew they would face it together, side by side. The future was still uncertain, and there would be more challenges to face. But for the first time, Lyra was no longer afraid. She had James by her side, and together, they could conquer anything. The stars above seemed to shine even brighter in that moment, as if the universe itself was smiling down on them. In that quiet, peaceful moment, they both understood that love was their greatest adventure, and it was one they would share forever. As Lyra and James continued their journey across the stars, the love they shared only seemed to grow stronger with each passing day. The universe, vast and filled with countless unknowns, had become their playground, a place where they could explore not just the outer reaches of space but the depths of their own hearts. Together, they had discovered a kind of peace neither of them had expected. Lyra, once a fierce warrior who had known little of affection, now found herself savoring the quiet moments with James. Every glance, every touch, every shared laugh was a reminder that love was not just an emotion but a force that could change everything. James, too, had changed in ways he never imagined. His life had once been defined by duty, by missions, and the harsh reality of life as a soldier. But with Lyra, he had discovered a new way of being. It wasn't about conquering worlds or fighting battles. It was about finding someone to stand by, someone who would support you through every challenge, someone who would be there when everything else seemed uncertain. As they explored new planets, they encountered new species, each with their own customs, struggles, and dreams. Yet, no matter where they went, they always found themselves returning to each other, their connection the one constant in a galaxy full of chaos. One afternoon, as they landed on a planet covered in vast forests and towering mountains, James and Lyra took a moment to rest. The air was fresh and crisp, filled with the scent of pine and earth. Lyra stood at the edge of a cliff, looking out at the breathtaking landscape before her. "I never thought I'd find a place like this," she said softly, her voice filled with wonder. James stood beside her, his gaze also fixed on the beauty of the world around them. "There's a lot out there," he said, "but nothing compares to this moment, with you." Lyra smiled, her heart swelling with love. She had come so far from the person she used to be, from the warrior who had once believed that emotions made her weak. Now, she knew that love was her greatest strength. It was a force that could heal, that could connect, and that could make even the most daunting journey feel worth it. As the sun began to set, casting a golden light across the horizon, they sat together in comfortable silence. There was no need for words. They had learned that the most powerful moments in life were often the quiet ones, the ones shared with someone who truly understood you. The future was still uncertain, but in that moment, Lyra knew that she and James would face it together. They had each other, and that was all that mattered. Their love was not just something they felt, it was something they lived, every day, with every step they took. The stars above seemed to shine brighter, as if the universe itself had recognized the bond they had forged. And in that moment, Lyra knew that no matter where their journey took them, they would always have each other to come back to. The greatest adventure was not in the destinations they reached but in the love they shared along the way.